Hello, folks. Welcome back to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with a very special guest today, with a very compelling story, a very unbelievable story that he's going to share with us. I'm here with Greg Hallgrimson, police chief of Greenwood, Missouri. And this man was faced with an evil that none of us, at least my audience, we cannot comprehend. It's something just, I got introduced to you by Sean, what's his last name? Sean Ryan, right? And he told me, Dave, you got to follow up on this story. He goes, you got to do something with this guy. This guy is just an unbelievable story. And he said, please get him some airtime because you were facing 12 years, correct? For what you're going to go into details about it on this, what happened December 17th of 2018. You were facing 12 years, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that was the possibility.
So without any further ado, please take us step by step what happened on this day, December 17th of 2018 in Greenwood, Missouri. You're the police chief, and something so evil happens that day where these chain of events lead up to you possibly facing 12 years in prison for doing something that, frankly, anybody that I know, myself included, would have done. So have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it was December 17th of 2018. I was in my office doing payroll for my officers. It was about 10:08 in the morning. We had an individual walk into the police department, told my corporal that he had just drowned his 6-month-old daughter in a pond. My corporal notified me immediately.
Hold on.
I ran down the hall.
1 second. You're sitting there just doing payroll, and a man walks in and says, I just drowned my 6-month-old daughter in a pond, in a freezing pond to boot, right? It was how cold was it that day?
It was I think it was 22 degrees that day.
Okay. And then you overheard this, or did someone come in and tell you this?
No, so the father came in and told my corporal. That was his first contact, and my corporal yelled down the hall for me. And then just by the tone of his voice, I could tell it was something I needed to get up and find out what was going on. And so as soon as I hit the hallway and realized what he had just yelled, he yelled down the hall and said, Chief, guys, baby's in the pond drowning on Doc Henry Road. And so I ran down the hall. As I'm running down the hall, the door to my lieutenant's office is open. It faces the foyer where everybody walks in to enter the PD. And when I looked in, the individual, the suspect, was sitting in a chair, unrestrained. And the look in his eyes was just, it was a new kind of evil for me to see. I've seen a million-mile stare quite a few times, and this was a little bit beyond that. There was just nothing behind those eyes.
Like he was just like checked out, like just what he didn't like, didn't care, no emotion. Yeah.
If I was a Catholic priest, I'd have started doing some things to try and get the beast out of him. But no,
you did the next best thing, and we'll get to that.
Well, he just had that evil, but just all about him. But my corporal and I ran out, got in our patrol cars. We knew where the pond was. There was only one pond located on that roadway. And, probably one of the craziest parts of this whole thing, I mean, the way it ended was bad enough, but every call from the very beginning of my career, you always have to hit the brakes. You always have to change the lanes. Sometimes you go into oncoming traffic when you're running hot, go to a call. And for some reason, getting to that pond, I mean, there was a lot of traffic, but those cars just went left, went right, just got completely out of our way. We ever had. And go down the road, but
so you're saying you kind of broke up.
You
broke up a little bit right now. Your phone freeze, but you're saying it was kind of like a Red Sea moment where everything just kind of parted ways for you to make it to the pond in the nick of time, right?
Yep, I believe so. Yeah. Cars just they just got out of our way like I had never seen before. But we got to the pond and bailed out. ran down the bank. I stripped off some of my stuff as I'm running down because I don't want to sink. We got to the edge of that pond, got through some of the ice, and there it was partially frozen. The frozen part of that pond was, maybe from the bank to 2 feet out, something like that. Like I said, it was about 20 or 22 degrees that day. When I first saw the baby, I believed this was all a hoax. I thought, okay, that guy, he's got a mental illness. There's something else going on here. I thought it was a porcelain doll. I didn't really believe it was an actual baby. It was
because it was so lifeless. It looked fake.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just pure white. I mean, pure white. And it had I could see the little curls. Now the baby was face down in the water. It was floating face down. And I could see the curls on the baby's head, but again, I thought it was a doll. And until we put hands on that baby, and realized it was real, I absolutely thought it was a doll. But we were able to get the baby out of the pond finally. My corporal and we got her up on the bank, and my corporal started, doing compressions and stuff, trying to revive her. I'm not sure.
You thought the baby was dead, correct? I mean, you thought it was gone.
Oh yeah. Oh, she was absolutely dead. Yeah. Yeah. We couldn't find any signs of life, no pulse, no anything, and so yeah, she was dead. And my corporal started compressions, and I don't know how long he worked on her. He wasn't getting any results, and he was doing it exactly the way that I did it later. But he ended up turning her over, and while he held on to her, I dug a lot of mud and grass and stuff out of her throat. I actually had 2 fingers all the way up to my knuckle down her throat, digging stuff out. And then we started compressions again. We didn't give breaths. Always scared to death to do that on a baby. Those lungs are so tiny. But did compressions again and again. Got a little bit of a whimper out of her. As soon as we got that, I remember looking up at my corporal's face, and he was a father of 2 children at that time, and I believe he had a third on the way. And the look on his face, just, man, you could tell he was about to bust, just to fall apart. But we got her to whimper. We immediately ran her up to his patrol car because his was still running. Stuck her in the front seat with the heater vents blowing on her as hot as we could get. I stripped down on the side of the road out of my uniform. Anything that was dry, I wrapped her up in, and just kind of kept giving her kind of hard rubs on the back and on the chest, and watching for more signs of life. Her eyes became open finally, and pretty soon, she kind of started looking around a little bit, but everything was lagging with her movements and stuff. And but the longer she sat there, the better she became. And then
were you suspecting kind of brain damage or
oh yeah, absolutely. I believed that at the very least brain damage was going to be a problem. And to be honest, I was probably one of my biggest fears at that moment when we were trying to get her warmed up. I was afraid that she was going to go unconscious again. And I'd been involved with the deal in the past when I worked in another state for a different agency where a child had, it came to, went unconscious again, and that was it. And so I just kind of had that fear in me, but she just kept getting better and better. And an individual driving down the road saw us all. That community, the entire community there, I just couldn't say enough good things about them. But
in Greenwood, Missouri. You're talking about Greenwood, Missouri, right?
Yes. But he stopped and he said, "Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do?" And I asked if he had any blankets or anything in his vehicle. He said he didn't, but he had some at home. And before I could say anything, he did a 3-point turn and took off back home to go get things to help us. He didn't even, I don't know that he even saw the baby. He may not have, but I don't know what the time span was from the time of our arrival to the time that the fire department got there with their ambulance. I was told at one point dispatch, it said it was about 17 minutes that we were on scene before they showed up. But my corporal had the mindset, while we were en route to the call, he actually went ahead and called for medical. When that was a great thing that he did that, but once fire department showed up, they came over and were trying to check the baby in the seat, and I didn't want to give her up. At that point, that's my kid. They got her. They got her in their bus. They started working on her, and maybe 4 or 5 minutes goes by, and we checked on her one more time. They said that she's getting better, a lot more signs of life, severe hypothermia, of course. But when I had the thought in my head that she's going to be okay, immediately pictured in my head this man being in the police department unrestrained in my lieutenant's office. I ran hot back to the PD as fast as I could get there safely.
So you felt even more of an urgency to get back because you're thinking this guy could be dangerous to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do that to a child, what are you going to do to an adult? But so I got back to the PD. I remember pulling into the parking lot and bailing out of my patrol car. I even remember my thought process as I'm running to the door of the police department to the public entrance. I was trying to remember if I put the car in park. But
so were you seeing red, or were you just what was going through your mind? What were you feeling? Just pure adrenaline?
Yeah, it was pure adrenaline for sure. And fear, a lot of fear. I always deemed that part of my job when I became a supervisor, and then especially when I became a chief, was none of my people are going to get hurt. If I can do something to keep that from happening, that's my job to do. And I bailed out of that car, run into that door, and when I grabbed the entry door going into the foyer for the police department, I have a memory of grabbing that door handle, yanking it open, running in there. From there, the only way that you can get into my lieutenant's office is with a 4-digit code. There's 2 ways to get in there, 2 doors. Both of those doors require a 4-digit code. There's no way to get in them otherwise. And I don't remember, I have no memory whatsoever, even today, of putting the 4-digit code in, opening the door, any of that. My next literal memory, and getting punched, kicked. I'm getting punched and kicked, choked. Got somebody on my back, got people yelling at me.
You don't, one second, just so my audience can catch up. You don't remember how you got in the door, but but then you come to when you're getting punched and kicked. Are you on the floor when you're getting punched and kicked?
My next memory was me standing over this guy, and I think I may have had a whole part of it. I was holding on to part of his shirt, possibly. But I was getting hit in my right ribs. Somebody was on my back. There's a lot of screaming going on, and it was my officers and my lieutenant getting me off this guy. But as soon as I came to, and I realized what was going on, and I took a few steps back away from this guy. The shock hit me, and that adrenaline dump was done, and I fell apart. I knew my career was over at that moment. I saw this, and I know how things are in that area, and I knew my career was over.
At the very least, your career was over. You didn't know what else. You didn't know what was looming. You just at that point you thought, well, I know I'm off the police force now, and you were police chief, so.
Correct. Yeah, for 6 years.
So how many cops were on you, punching you and kicking you? How many of the department were on you trying to pull you off this guy?
3, I believe.
So you completely lost it and just started railing on this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You saw red. Yeah. You saw red like any normal person would, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
How badly beaten was this guy?
At that moment, I know we ended up taking him out. My lieutenant and another officer took him out, put him in a patrol car in the back seat, So I remember seeing his face just for a few seconds, and he was bloodied up, but as far as, any kind of permanent damage or anything, at that moment, I wouldn't have known. I couldn't tell that, but
did he still
my understanding was he had.
Did he still have that checked out look on his eyes, like that no soul there, even after you punched and kicked him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, there was nothing there, man. Nothing at all.
Was he on drugs? Did you find out if he was on drugs or if this was a completely sober man?
Yeah, from my understanding, he was 100% sober. Yeah.
Okay, so then they put him in the patrol car, and then what happens?
So we get him in the patrol car, fire department. Some of the members of the fire department end up coming back to our police department. They do a medical check on him. They came in and they came into my lieutenant's office where I still was at that moment and said that he's fine, doesn't need to go to the hospital. He'll be okay. I wasn't part of that medical check, so other than what they said, I don't know. But we kept him confined out there. I ended up going back into my office, which was down the hall, and shut my office door. My city clerk was yelling. The two buildings are connected. We're connected to City Hall, and my city clerk was yelling and trying to find out what's going on because she heard a lot of commotion and she wanted to make sure everybody's okay. But she was scared to enter the building, and so I told her to go ahead and enter, and I told her verbally, to her face, I said, I resign. I'm done. I quit. I resign my post. And she said, no, absolutely not. We can't have that happen. You're not leaving this place. And so I got hold of my mayor and immediately told him over the phone that I resigned. And I didn't tell him what had happened. I just said what just took place here.
May I ask you something? Were you resigning in fear of that you could be fired, so you wanted to resign beforehand, or were you just so fed up with everything that you were just like, I'm out?
I was resigning because I had betrayed my oath. And
okay, so you knew you betrayed your oath.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Okay.
And so that was what I needed to do, to at least take care of that part of it, and when I got hold of my mayor and told him that something had just happened and it was on me and I need to resign. He said, whatever it is, chief, we'll get through it. You can't resign. You're the best thing that's ever happened to the city. You got to stay. We're not going to let you go. Just promise me you'll stay in your office until I can get there. We'll work through it. And I did. And we went by a policy that was set in place not very long before that. A policy that my captain and I had been working on, where somebody uninvolved in the incident had to come in and run the show. And so my captain was actually off that day. We called him in. As soon as he got there, he took over. He followed the policy to a T. In that policy, anybody involved in a critical incident had to immediately be put on leave, be confined to one part of the police department until we felt that they were safe to travel or do whatever. And they had to immediately be set up to go see a counselor. And so my captain came in, took care of all those steps, got us set up with a counselor that actually had a law enforcement career prior to being a counselor. And so by 5:30 that night, my corporal and I both had already seen the counselor. And that was a really good thing to have in place, but it takes a little more than a counselor to get past something like that, but yeah, it was little rough, but
so this is when, all this happens, and now this is really where your nightmare begins, right? This is like, at this point, this is when it goes a whole different direction for you. You're not just going to be fired, but now you're going to be facing what you said was 12 years in penitentiary, right?
Right. And so I was at the PD, I think, until about 7:00 that night, just trying to gather myself before I tried to go home, to my wife and stuff, and trying to figure out what I was going to say to her, and it was probably one of the toughest times that I've ever faced. But I spoke with our union rep for the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, and he he made contact with somebody, got me an attorney through the FOP. And I had that done. Well, right after I got home that night, I was notified that I had an attorney. And so that gave me some relief. I felt a little bit better. I didn't know what direction things were going to go. I really didn't. All I knew was I betrayed my oath, and that I couldn't get that out of my head. I couldn't get that out of my head. I got home. I ended up I had a little I was in that cave for probably, and I say cave, it was just a finished basement. But and then I had to come out because I was having surgery on my right shoulder on that Friday.
So you kind of broke up a little bit, but you were saying that you kind of locked yourself away in a room. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I locked myself away. Yeah, I didn't want to talk to my wife. Didn't want to.
But you still didn't know at this time that you could be facing 12 years in prison.
No.
Okay.
I to be honest with you, the thought that it would even get to the federal level hadn't entered my mind at that point. And I believed, it would probably go to the state level, but I didn't really have a whole lot of thought about even about that part. It was just trying to cope with what had happened, what we dealt with the baby, and then what I had done, and just trying to get the memory was a big thing for me, and that never happened. But I just kept myself confined until the day I had to go get surgery on my shoulder, which was that following Friday. And
so you hurt? Did you already had a prior injury to your shoulder, or did you hurt your shoulder beating the hell out of this guy?
No, it was prior.
Okay, so it was probably a lot worse now.
Yeah, I didn't help it any. Yeah, not at all.
So
I had rotator cuff tears, detached bicep, and a torn labrum. Yeah.
So how much longer until you find out? How many days go by until you find out, like, oh shit, I'm in deep shit?
It was probably, so that happened December 17th of 2018, and it was the first part of May of 19 that I found out it was going federal.
And so at this point, were you just thinking I'm going to get a smack on the hand?
Probably no, I assumed that my peace officer standard and training license for Missouri was going to get pulled, and I would lose that. I thought, I could most likely get hit with an assault charge, which at that point would have been a misdemeanor. I didn't think a whole lot past that, and to be honest, my mind didn't really think a lot about charges or my future even really. I was still trying to deal with that day and get it through my head. I'd never been in a position where I lost memory like that, and that really ate at me. But that early part of May in 2019, I get a knock on the door, and I've got my shoulder all in this harness thing and ice packs on it, and all this, and doing physical therapy at that time. And I ended up answering the door, and it's two FBI agents, and they were there to serve me an indictment. That's when, it really hit home, and I realized just how big this was going to be. But,
especially with the police getting a bad rap and everything going on, I bet you're like, this is going to be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing was at that time, the nation was not doing good with law enforcement. They weren't looked at in a good light. There were a lot of independent groups out there. Some of them I like to call terrorist groups, but there are a lot of independent groups out there that were raising hell about police, and videos that just show one little part of it, of what happened to somebody. And, it's pretty incriminating. But when you saw the whole video of what happened to someone, then you realize, oh, well, they were justified. But there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on, and I was scared to death, of what was going to happen with me. I was able to find an attorney, a federal attorney that he'd worked as a federal prosecutor for the Justice Department in the past, and so I had a lot of faith in him. Hired it, and I went ahead and retained him, and he was very eager to take this to trial. He wanted to take this to a jury trial. He thought that there was a good chance that we could win. He was very, very confident in that. And then, the Justice Department, it was, 2.5 years before.
Now, let me ask you this, Chief. I'm going to call you Chief. You were you getting any media attention at this time? Were you getting any kind of media attention during this whole scenario?
Yeah, some, and I ended up doing an interview with CNN. Actually did it out of my living room, and they had a show on there. It was Back to Blue or something, I don't know, or Blue Corner or something like that. And so I did a deal on that. But at that time, it hadn't came out that Ziccarelli had been hurt and things like that. And so I just talked about the rescue, talked about my corporal a lot, how good he did, that kind of a thing.
So you were kind of scared to get any more media attention, especially with the way the climate was in the country at that time, because and God forbid if this guy would have been black, you would have been really in deep shit.
Yeah.
Seriously, let's just be honest here. This guy, I saw a picture of him. He looked like he was Hispanic, or he looked like he looked dark featured.
Yeah, I think I don't know his ethnicity. Maybe Middle Eastern. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What he did was just pure evil. So go ahead and take it from there. So now you got this prosecutor. You're moving forward. You're thinking, oh great, what's going to happen now?
Right. Yeah, my attorney. Like I said, he was very confident. We stayed in touch quite a bit, and then I'm not sure exactly when it was. I think it was early in 2020. They wanted us to come to the Justice Department and sit in a conference room with them to watch the on-camera video. So to back up just a little bit here. So my department was the first department in the state of Missouri to issue body cameras to officers. So we're always real proud of that. And I was pretty adamant with my officers that anytime you have contact with the public, regardless of what it is, you turn that camera on. And that was a good thing. In this one, my lieutenant actually had his body camera on the entire time. So that, everything that took place was caught on that camera. As far as that goes, as soon as everything was done and they got me off of them.
But you saw the footage of you beating the hell out of this guy.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you saw the footage, did you just see yourself going there in a rage and just start attacking this guy, or did he say something to you? Did you say something to him? Was there words back and forth, or was it just straight you blacked out and just ripped this guy a new ass?
Yeah. I even watching it, I still, even now, I still have zero memory, zero. Wow. And watching myself do that, it was probably one of the strangest feelings I've had, just seeing myself do something that I had no reaccounting of. But no, I ripped him a new ass. Yeah.
So how much longer in this process do you go where you find out I could be facing up to 12 years in prison?
I didn't learn about that part of it until my attorney had covered that a little bit, but from my memory, the main thing with my attorney that we spoke of was, going to a jury trial, that sort of thing. But I made contact with my attorney in late 2020 and said, with what's going on now, I'm afraid of doing this jury trial. It seems like everything you see on television is anti-police, and so him, I talked about it. I went to him with it, and I said, what about a plea? What are your thoughts on a plea? And he said, yeah, we could do that. We talked it over a little bit, figured out what we wanted to do. He approached the prosecutors with a plea agreement, and we went from there. They agreed to it. At that time, it was going to be 2 years of probation, and that got changed, of course. But
what did that get changed to?
5 years.
5 years probation. 5 years. So that was your plea?
Well, 2 years was the plea. 5 years was
they came back with 5 years.
Yeah, the judge changed it from 2 to 5. Yeah. The prosecutors were fine with the 2 years. The judge, there weren't any fines. And at one point I was told that I was going to have to pay restitution to the father of the baby. And that was a pretty tough thing to swallow. But
what would have been restitution? How much?
They threw out $7,500.
Was this guy hurt at all? Did he have stitches? Did he have, I mean, I'm sure he had a bloody nose, a broken nose, any kind of injuries like that?
He had some abrasions and stuff, some marks on his face. And, from my understanding, he had an injury to his jaw, but there were no broken bones, no lacerations requiring any kind of stitching or anything like that.
So during this whole process, man, you're probably not sleeping at night. You're thinking, I'm going to be facing 12 years in prison. I'm going to die, because a policeman going to federal prison is a death sentence, right?
Yeah. In my belief it is. Yeah.
So you've had to been almost out of your mind with adrenaline and fear, knowing you probably couldn't sleep.
No. It affected my entire life, everything I did.
And how many years did you go through this? Like 2 years of this?
Yeah, a little over 2 years. And it just 2 to 3 hours of sleep, sometimes no sleep. There was one little span I was up 32 hours straight. It screwed up everything, in my brain. But
were you drinking? Did you get into the bottle a little bit?
I did a little. Yeah. Actually I did a little. Yeah. And I figured out real quick that wasn't the right thing to do. I started going to some pretty dark places, and I didn't want to be there. But
were you getting suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, daily. Yeah. Then my marriage wasn't doing real great at that time either, and so that didn't help things. And of course, me being in that situation with that mindset, that's not going to do any good for any marriage. I isolated myself away from everyone, even my wife. I go sit in my man cave and shut the door, and that was the end of it. I'd be there all night until I felt like I was going to pass out, and then I'd finally go to bed and hit the pillow, start thinking about shit, get back up and back in the cave.
Mental torture. This was mental torture for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I quit talking to my own kids, quit talking to my entire family, quit talking to my wife, to shut myself up, and that was the end of it. I just wanted to battle with what I had inside me, and that was it. Didn't want to spend time doing anything else.
When Sean Ryan reached out to me about you, I watched your interview with Sean Ryan, and I was just like, man, you were really. I had so many questions, and my heart was being tugged. I felt so much for you, man, because I could only imagine during that whole duration what you must have been going through psychologically. And I just couldn't stop thinking about that. I'm like, man, the distress on this man, knowing that he could be up in prison for 12 years away from his family. A cop in prison is bad news. It's bad, And I've heard the stories. I've heard the stories of cops going to prisons. I'm from the El Paso border area, and any cop that goes to jail here in the surrounding areas, they get met with all the Aztecas and the people here in prison. So I was thinking that, and I remember I reached out to you to do an interview, and you came back to me and said, man, my attorney says it's not a good idea to do any more interviews. What was the thought process on that? Could you tell me that? Why didn't you want to do any more interviews? I mean, you already did one with Sean. You already did CNN, right? You did CNN and Sean, or just Sean?
Well, CNN was pretty close after the incident had happened. And I hadn't retained my attorney at that point. I just had an FOP attorney, and say bad things about him. I know he's probably a representative attorney, and but I had confidence in myself and confidence in Sean that this was a good thing, and it was a very good thing. But when he found out that I'd done that show, my attorney, he got a little bit upset about it, and
you broke up for a little bit, so I'm sorry to my audience that I keep interrupting, and I know they get on my case about that, but you were saying that your attorney, he thought it was a good thing that you did a show with Sean Ryan, but then after that, he's like, no more.
Well, no, he was unaware. He didn't know I did the show until after it was done. And when he found out, he was upset. But yeah, he told me no more interviews until after sentencing. Yeah.
And when I got a hold of you, that was like a day, 2 days before your sentencing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I had no idea. And you were going to come on my show, and then you called me and canceled, said, I got to wait till after sentencing. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh man, this is the real deal right here. We're going to find out what happens. And go ahead and tell the audience what happens when you went to sentencing.
So I went to sentencing, and they had talked about
that was Tuesday, right? You went to sentencing this last
correct,
Tuesday?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so they had talked about doing $10,000 fine, $7,500 restitution to the father of the baby. Ultimately, what the judge did was 5 years of probation instead of 2, no restitution and no fines. So the probation is more than what I expected, but the fact that there's no fines or restitution, I'm okay with.
So when you went into this, were you kind of knew what the judge was going to hand down to you? You kind of had an idea?
I did. And I believed it was going to be the 24 months of probation, and maybe some kind of mental health program, something like that. But he did the 5 years of probation, and I have no problem, being good for 5 years. I can do that. But nevertheless, having to get permission to go places outside of a county area, and things like that. And, knowing that I'm a convicted felon now, that's what really kicks my ass. I just kind of sit in the dark sometimes and just think about that, and I'm trying to figure out where my life's going to go now, what I'm going to do. Employment is, I'm employed by a place now. Don't like the job, but it's money. I think everybody on this planet's probably worked somewhere they didn't want to sometimes. So I'm just kind of chewing that up. And but ultimately, I want to find a way to get back toward law enforcement if I can't be in it, which I know that's one of the things the federal prosecutors had said, through my attorney was the end result, they do not want me back in law enforcement. That's kind of tough because that's, the way I felt my entire life, even in high school, was law enforcement. That's it. That's what I'm here to do.
I think that's what's so important about getting your story out and getting you media coverage and telling your story, because I understand, what you went through. I can't say that. If I would have been there, I probably would have joined in and kicking the guy's ass, if you want to know the truth, because I've shared with you a story where I was a witness to a woman that ran out of a restaurant, and her baby was murdered by her husband, and I saw the baby's death when they had the man in custody and everything. I will never forget that feeling. So I had somewhat kind of almost the same type of thing, but you were much more involved than I was. So I commend you, man. I'll be honest with you. And I'm so glad that, I know it seems hard for you that you got 5 years of probation, this and that, but hey, man, you were facing 12 years, and you got to look at it, the glass half full. You have to at this point, because that would have been really bad, Chief.
Oh yeah. No, I'd already made my mind up, a while back in late 19, early 20. I already made my mind up that if that's the route it took, I was going to do whatever I could to be on suicide watch, because I knew I'd be confined by myself at that point. And that was kind of my plan. If I went to prison, that's what I was going to do.
So how are you feeling now, man? You got a new lease on life, really. I know it sucks. You got 5 years probation, but what's your mental state now? What's your mental state right now?
That day of the hearing, after it was all over with, I did feel some relief, definitely did. But now it's just real scary. Some of the stress is gone, but it's kind of replaced with a new stress, a much easier stress to deal with. but just trying to figure out what I'm going to do from here on out. Where am I going to go from here? One of the amazing things, one of the really surprising things to me is the people on this planet, man. I had no idea there were that many good people here at all. I grew up in Kansas and around the Kansas City, Missouri area and stuff. And, Kansas City, Missouri, you get to a point where you don't feel like there's that many good people left. And with the support and stuff that I received, I had a woman in Ohio. I'd never met her in my life, still haven't in person. And she started a support group for me on Facebook. And then she started a petition. Over 1,000 members on the support group, and 2,500 signatures, I think, on the petition. And I'd never even met this woman, but she wanted to do this. She reached out to me and asked me if she could. And I said, yeah, take it and run, and I don't know, I've probably gotten well over 5,000 messages from people, just giving support. I've answered every single one of them. And I've developed some friendships along the way through those messages with people in Europe, Australia, all over the world. And it's amazing to me. It's very humbling, I think would be a really good way to say that. But that's actually, my marriage ended because a lot of that, my marriage ended because of a lot of the stuff I was going through. That put a lot of stress on my wife as well. And that was just not something that she was built really to deal with. And so that marriage ended. And, the surprising thing was, through that support group, I had a woman message me, and she was from an area that I was familiar with in Oklahoma. And we started talking about the area and stuff. And surprising, and I'm sorry, this is going to shock you, but 3 weeks after we first started talking, we got married.
Damn, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I moved to Oklahoma. Yeah,
you moved on. Good for you. You moved on.
Yeah, she's a hell of a support mechanism for me. Yeah.
God bless you, man. God bless you. And have you ever thought of maybe starting a GoFundMe or anything like that?
So GoFundMe is kind of a funny thing. We did actually. One of my former officers had started a GoFundMe page for me, and as soon as GoFundMe found out that I had charges against me, they kept shutting it down, but they wouldn't tell us why. Finally, the fourth time that we reached out to them after trying to start one again, Jamie Falgren, he was one of my former officers. They ended up telling him finally that, we don't support criminals, and that's why they were shutting it down. So I was charged, I wasn't convicted, but in their eyes, I was already a criminal.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Is there a way people can reach you? Because what I think is maybe put your Venmo public and have people donate to you. How about that?
Yeah, we could do that.
There's an idea.
Yeah.
Put your Venmo public. And when I put this out on YouTube, where can people reach you, and what's your Venmo? Do you have a Venmo?
I do. I got to look it up because I think I've only used it like twice. I'm technology illiterate, but
it's all right. Venmo. Just what's your name on Venmo? And I'll tell people to donate on Venmo to you.
It might be something that I have to send to you and we get a link to, because I got to find it on this damn phone.
That's okay. But we can do that.
The only thing they do on these phones is make them a little more complicated. But actually, I just pulled it up.
Okay. But
yeah, my email, if somebody just wants to say hello, my email is probably the best way, and it's going to be G and then my last name, HALLGRIMSON 1969 @live.com.
Yeah, I got
and
that.
Then
and when you give me, what's your Venmo? Everyone pay attention right here and show this guy some love with the Venmo. Go ahead. What is it?
So it's at G Hallgrimson. That's the whole thing. GHALLGRIMSON.
G Hallgrimson.
Yep, at G Hallgrimson.
At G Hallgrimson. All right, folks. Show this man some love. Flood his Venmo. This guy needs it. He's a hero. From hero to zero, back to hero. Don't worry, I've been there too. I was a hero, then I went to zero. Now I'm bouncing back up to be a hero. So I just want to say thank you for joining me. I'm going to put this up on ninoscorner.tv. It was a great interview. I loved hearing your story, sir. And I hope you do get back on the force. But let's hope your Venmo gets filled up for Christmas.
Well, I appreciate that very much. You know, one of the big things that I'm looking at right now, and I'm gonna find a way to do this, but I want to figure out a way for local governments at the very least, if not nationally, to put mandates in effect for law enforcement and first responders for mental health. You know, it's with the things that I experienced in my career from day one. One of the very first things I had to work when I got out of the academy was a possible homicide. That was a week after I got out. And I ran the show. I did the investigating on it, which was such a strange thing that close to the academy. But you know, people don't understand the mental health aspect of first responders, of law enforcement. You never deal with somebody that's having a good day. You just don't. And that has to have an effect on the brain. You know, there's no way around it. And I think that there should be mandates in place where, you know, law enforcement, first responders are required, you know, once a month or once every 2 months to do a visit with a licensed psychologist and sit down and have a talk. Get those things out so it's not built up. You know, one of the things Sean and I talked about, you know, I explained to him, you know, how everything gets compartmentalized, you know, whether it's a fatality accident, you know, a dead body. I had one, God forbid, I had one scene where this poor man had passed away on the toilet, and it was in late August. He'd been in there for about a week and a half, you know, 100-degree temperatures. He got big enough that he popped. He had a big black hairy dog, and he was, like I said, in the bathroom on the toilet. He had linoleum floors, and when he popped, all the body grease, all those fluids went onto that linoleum. That dog went in there and rolled around in it, and apparently that dog had gotten hungry. And had eaten his genitals and part of the inside of his right thigh.
No way.
Oh yeah. Now I will say, because any law enforcement that's listening to this, yes, we made jokes of this. I mean, man, we did, and God forbid the public heard them, because they wouldn't understand. They just would never get it. But you know, we called the dog dickhead, things like that. We did a lot of yeah, but you know, that was a gross scene. But you know, there was a lot of different things you run across in law enforcement that you just don't know how to handle it, so you stick it in a little box and tuck it away, and that's the end of it. And that needs to be addressed, and that's what, hopefully somehow I can make something happen for that to take place.
Well, this is a start, man. I just want to say, you know, I give a lot of credit to you, and I'm sorry you had to go through what you went through. And I just want to say thank you for coming on ninoscorner.tv. This will be on ninoscorner.tv today. I may put it on Rumble, but it'll be up on YouTube in a few days when I get my strike, when I get out of timeout. So thank you, Chief. Let's keep in touch, man. And anytime you want to come on the show, you're welcome.
Hey, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it. This is very cool.
All right, Chief. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you.
God bless.